Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. It is the instant match reaction, the not so instant match reaction. I feel like I've said that a lot recently, but anyway, I digress. Everton 0, Leicester City 2 at Goodison Park yesterday. A truly awful night for Everton Football Club, a truly awful performance, a truly awful result, just a really bad day at the office. And I've taken the last sort of 12 hours or so, 15 hours or so to try and digest the game and to try and think within the context of the situation and to try and think very logically about the performance and what it means and doesn't mean to Everton's season and Everton's current form. But it's really difficult when analysing a performance like last night's because, as I've mentioned before, a number of times on this channel recently, when looking at the defeats Everton have had this season, there's only really been, Aston Villa away from home on the second game of the season, first away game of the season. There's only really been that game where you looked at and you thought, we should have done better. We should have been a lot more competitive in that game, and we should definitely have got something out of that game. For me, we should have won it, given Aston Villa's form, and not at that time, but how their season has panned out. But we didn't, and it was the second game of the season, first away game. We still didn't have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We still didn't have a number of players. Onana was making his debut. I think Connor Cody made his debut on that day as well. So they were mitigating circumstances maybe as to why we didn't perform as well as we would have wanted. And every other defeat since then have been in games where we've been poor, we've given chances away, but they've been against teams that, realistically, you would expect Everton to lose against. Certainly in the context of this season and the situation that we're currently in. Historically, okay, we've got a good record against Man United and Chelsea at home, etc. But given where we are at the moment, the defeats to those teams, Tottenham away, weren't very surprising. I sat here 2 weeks ago after the Newcastle defeat and said that was our worst performance of the season, and I was quite happy to sit here the week after or a few days later and talk about the Crystal Palace game, which was our best performance of the season. I didn't quite think it could get worse than Newcastle, just on the basis that we weren't in the game at all. Newcastle on the day weren't particularly great, before any Newcastle fans jump in and start telling me about how brilliant they are. On the day, they weren't particularly great. And we just weren't competitive. We didn't compete. We didn't offer anything. We were really poor, and it was a really sort of difficult evening to be an Evertonian, that one. Yesterday, somehow and some way, topped it, by being the worst performance of the season. Last night was atrocious. It was absolutely abysmal from start to finish. And I mean absolutely no disrespect when I say this, but given the way the season has panned out, and given the form of both teams, and given Everton's defensive solidity, and given Leicester's real sort of, I don't even want to say up and down start to the season, because okay, they've come into a little bit of form recently and I appreciate that and I understand that, but previous to that, Leicester didn't look like they could buy a point from anywhere. There was no way that game should have panned out in the way that it did. We were abysmal yesterday in every sense of the word, from the goalkeeper to the defence to the midfield to the forwards. We were absolutely abysmal. Now, defensively, we were okay. Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, they done okay. I thought Everton's best player was Vitaly Mykolenko by a country mile. But just overall, everybody was lacklustre. Everybody was off it. And we made what is a poor Leicester City team, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but at this point, I don't really care. We made what is a poor Leicester City team, who have been in poor form this season, look like Barcelona. Now, even if Leicester City have had a upturn in form recently, even if Leicester City have got a little bit more confidence, they've got a little bit more about themselves recently, they should never have been turning up at Goodison and playing the way in which they did. And they did that because we allowed them to. We allowed them to control the game. We allowed them to play round us. We allowed them to control the midfield. We allowed them to control the pace of the game. We just allowed them to do exactly what they wanted. Once again, our forward line was absolutely abysmal. I think the decision to start Demarai Gray was one that I will never understand. Demarai Gray shouldn't be starting games of football for Everton. Now, I get that this whole, well, we've got nobody else and who should start there instead, and I understand that Anthony Gordon come on and didn't really do anything either. I thought all of the subs yesterday were fucking abysmal, every single one of them. I don't think any of them made a difference whatsoever. But, you know, again, I don't just want to point fingers at Damari Gray. Sagana Gay was abysmal. Amadou Onana was shocking. Obviously, we've since found out that Amadou Onana was apparently playing with a sprained ankle. He'd sprained his ankle in training on Friday. But why is he playing a Premier League game of football on the Saturday then? When you've got Abdoulaye Doucouré, James Garner there, Tom Davies. Now, I know James Garner and Doucouré both come off the bench, and the pair of them, for me, were completely irrelevant in the game. But why are we playing a lad who has sprained his ankle the day before in a game when you've got other options, when he doesn't need to play? And what we saw from Amadou Onana yesterday was the performance of a player who looked like he'd sprained his ankle. He was jogging around, he was second to every ball, he wasn't physical in the challenge, he didn't really win anything, his passing was poor, he was abysmal. But so was Garner, so was Seamus Coleman, so was Dominic Calvert-Lewin, so was Damari Gray. You know, Iwobi didn't really have anywhere near a good a game as what you would hope and expect. You know, same with Dwight McNeil. He was involved a little bit more than Damari Gray, but again, the output was non-existent. It was just a really, really, really bad day at the office all round, and a really disappointing performance from Everton for me. If we were up against the Manchester City or the Chelsea, or, you know, a team that an Arsenal at the top of the league who were fighting and who were really competitive, you'd look and you go, well, okay, you know, it was a bad day at the office. We come up against a really good team there. We come up against a Leicester team that we've made look like they're one of the best teams in the league, and they're really not. They're one of the worst teams in the league at the moment. I know they've had a couple of good wins, you know, before the City defeat, and their confidence might be up and their tails might be up a little bit, but that doesn't distract away from the 2 months prior to that where they didn't look like they could pick up a point. And that falls on the manager, and that falls on the players, and worryingly, it falls on the system. I think for the first time, maybe not the first time, but certainly the first time that we've noticed yesterday, it really, really seemed like that 4-3-3 formation just didn't work yesterday, and we were completely overrun in the midfield. You know, Yuri Tielemans completely run the game, and don't get me wrong, his goal is an absolute wonder goal in terms of the strike and the way that he set it up and the quality it takes to do that. But the goal in itself, from an Everton point of view, is shocking. It's an absolutely woeful goal to concede. Seamus Coleman proves why he shouldn't be anywhere near an Everton starting 11. I don't care if he's the captain. I don't care if he's a leader. I don't care if he's a legend. I don't care if he's been here for 15, 20, 400 years. I don't care. I simply do not care. That was the first mistake that Frank Lampard made yesterday, is not starting Nathan Patterson. There is absolutely no room in football for sentiment. There is no room in football for, yeah, but he's been here 10 years and he was okay last week, so he starts. Nonsense. I understood why Nathan Patterson didn't start last week, because it was his first game, it was his first time back in the, you know, the squad since his injury. He didn't have that fitness, he didn't have that, you know, match fitness, etc. Seamus played, Nathan Patterson come on. I had no big issue with that. Yesterday, that was a woeful decision by Frank Lampard. An absolutely woeful decision, and I'll sit here and I'll argue the point until I'm blue in the face. Nathan Patterson is Everton's number one right back. If Nathan Patterson is fit, I do not care the circumstance. I do not care how well Seamus Coleman may or may not have played the week before. I don't care if Seamus Coleman's been here for 15 years. I don't care if he's a lovely fella. I don't care if he is the nicest guy and the nicest, role model at the football club. I do not care. Nathan Patterson is Everton's number one right back. And if Nathan Patterson is fit, Nathan Patterson should start. Because what happened yesterday was Frank Lampard was asking for an excuse to drop Seamus Coleman. I sat there in the pub before the game and I turned round to one of the lads who I go to the game with and I said, the reason Seamus Coleman is playing is because Lampard is looking for an excuse to not play Seamus Coleman, instead of the reason being, well, yeah, you done all right last week, but this lad's our number one right back and he's back now and he's fit, so he starts because he's the number one. It's as simple as that. It's absolutely as simple as that. And if people say, oh, a little bit harsh on Seamus that because I thought he'd done okay the last couple of weeks, that is what it is. He's not the number one right back anymore. And what did we see yesterday? We saw Seamus Coleman ripped to bits, prove why he shouldn't be anywhere near the starting 11 for Everton, why he's not quick enough, why he's not fast enough, why he's not good enough anymore. And then the decision had to be made to take him off and put Patterson on. And now Nathan Patterson will play in the next 2 games, likely. Certainly the game against Bournemouth in the league. But why did it have to come to that? And I'm not blaming Seamus entirely. I'm not sitting here saying if Seamus Coleman wouldn't have started, then we'd have won the game. I'm not saying that because, as I said, Garner, Onana, Calvert-Lewin, Gray, they were all absolutely abysmal yesterday. But it's little mistakes like that from Frank Lampard which just worry me a little bit. They worry me. It's that lack of, maybe cutthroatedness isn't the word. I don't even think that is a word, to be honest. But it's that lack of, having that confidence in yourself to say, well, yeah, Seamus, you're great and you're a boss fella to have around and you've done well while Nathan Patterson's been out, but he's the number one now and he's back and he's fit. He's fit enough to be on the bench. He's fit enough to come on with half an hour to go last week and done okay. So he starts now. Because what will now happen is Nathan Patterson will start against Bournemouth. What would have been the difference with him starting yesterday? He was fit, he was available, he was ready. Those words come out of Frank Lampard's mouth in the press conference. He's fit, he's ready, he's available. It's whether I make the decision. So why didn't you make the decision? Why was the decision to play a right back who we all know, as much as we love him, as much as he's great, as much as it's not his fault, as much as we appreciate him, we all know he simply isn't up to task anymore in this league. So why was he playing when the lad who's come in to replace him and who had been absolutely faultless until he got the injury is sat on the bench? Is it for sentiment? Is it because he's a leader? Why is it? Now, Frank will come out and say, because I didn't deem Nathan Patterson fit enough to start the game. Bollocks, because you said in the press conference the day before, he is fit enough to start the game and it's whether you make the decision. The decision was made because you wanted the reason to drop Seamus Coleman instead of saying, the reason is that you're not the number one anymore and the number one is back. So nice one for filling in for a couple of weeks. We appreciate you, but he's now back in. Simple as that. Absolutely simple as that. But it wasn't the only mistake Frank made yesterday. I think the clear lack of plan B is worrying at the moment in this Everton team. And by that, what I mean is, we, as much as people want to have a go at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as much as people want to scream and shout about why he isn't good enough and why he should be replaced and why this and why that and why the other and why he's unreliable and this, that and the other, we depend on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Whether we like it or not, we depend on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a good game, like he did against Palace, the likelihood is Everton will get something out of the game. Whether we win it, whether we get a point out of it, we'll get something out of that game. If he's good, if he's big, if he's physical, if he's winning balls in the air, if he's taking it down, if he's moving players about, we'll get something out of the game. The moment Dominic Calvert-Lewin either A, has an off game, or B, as he did yesterday in both situations, picks up an injury, we are bollocksed. Because there's no plan B. And plan A is lump it up to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and hope that he can get on the end of a header, whether it be from, a lumped ball from the centre-backs, whether it be a lumped ball from the goalkeeper, whatever it may be, lump it up to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and hope that he can get on the end of the header, knock it down, and create some space for whether it be a Iwobi or Gray or Gordon or McNeil, whoever it may be. Now, when Dom isn't on form, which he's going to have games where he's not playing particularly well. He's going to have games where he's struggling. He's going to have games where he's losing the physical battle, because he will. That's football. We're bollocksed because we have no plan B. What our plan B is to bring Neil Maupay on and to continue with plan A. Neil Maupay is a decent, capable Premier League striker. He's 4'6". Why are we making substitutions that mean our front three is Maupay, McNeil and Gray, or Maupay, Gordon and Gray, and we're still lashing the ball up as if any of them are capable of winning a header? None of them win balls in the air. None of them. Why are we lumping the ball up to Neil Maupay in the same way as we do to Dominic Calvert-Lewin when he's never, ever, he's not going to beat any Premier League centre-half in the air? He's not going to do it. So why are we doing that? Why is there no plan B? Neil Maupay, if that was what the thought process was for Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell in the summer and the recruitment team in the summer, then why didn't we go out and buy a like-for-like to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, a 6'3", 6'4" striker who's capable in the air and who can win balls? I would have rather, and I'm not just saying this because I'm annoyed or I'm frustrated or I'm angry or, oh, Cam, you're losing your head. I would have rather him brought Michael Keane on up front yesterday instead of Neil Maupay. I would have rather him brought Mason Holgate on at centre-back and put James Tarkowski where Dominic Calvert-Lewin was. Why? Because the tactic when Neil Maupay come on was the same as when Dominic Calvert-Lewin was on. Lump the ball up and hope he wins it in the air. He's never winning anything in the air, which means he was useless. He was absolutely useless when he come on yesterday. The system, the style, the tactic, the plan has to change if you're replacing Dominic Calvert-Lewin with Neil Maupay, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin is 6'3", 6'4", and dominant in the air, and Neil Maupay is the complete opposite to that. So you cannot replace Dominic Calvert-Lewin with Neil Maupay and say, right, carry on doing what you're doing. It isn't going to work. It would have been better putting Holgate up there or Keane up there or Decore up there and saying your sole job is to win that ball in the air. Your sole job. Man United did it in midweek with Harry Maguire in the Europa League, and it didn't work. They didn't get what they wanted. But Erik ten Hag said, right, you go up there, you stand next to Ronaldo, and your sole job is to win that ball in the air. When it comes to you, win the ball in the air. Why are we bringing on a lad who is, you know, as I said, to say not very tall would be an understatement, and still persisting to try and do the same thing as we do with a striker who is very tall and is dominant in the air. The system has to change. Our plan A is lump it to Dom and pray that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a good game. Because at the minute, the wingers are fucking abysmal. Absolutely abysmal at the minute. Demarai Gray needs time out the team. He's been absolutely shocking recently. His default is to pick the ball up, run in the corner, try and do a couple of step overs and lose the ball. That's all he ever does. He doesn't offer anything more than that. He doesn't offer anything else. It's just, I'm going to pick the ball up, I'm going to tighten the angle as much as possible, I'm going to do 3 step overs and I'm going to lose the ball. Simple as that. Or I'm going to put a wayward cross in that's going to get defended. He puts 1 good ball in out of 10. I mean, Wormy says, is McNeil a shit signing? Yeah. Listen, McNeil, again, in terms of end product, in terms of creativity, in terms of offering us something, offers us very little in terms of that. He's not a game winner. He's not a game changer. I actually think McNeil done okay yesterday, to be honest. I think his effort, his work rate. Listen, if we're talking about his application and his ability to change the game, he was woeful. He was as woeful as the rest of them. But at least he ran around a bit. At least he put himself about. At least he worked hard. Demarai Gray was abysmal yesterday. Anthony Gordon, when he come on, was abysmal yesterday. Absolutely embarrassing. But for me, when you're coming out in the second half and you've got, you know, what we had half an hour after they'd scored, 35 minutes after they scored to get back in the game, we didn't once look like getting back into the game. I turned round to my dad and said, this is over. This is over, because Dom isn't having a good game and he doesn't seem, you know, he's either hurt or whatever. And when Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't have a good game, we've got no plan B. There's no plan B. The wingers aren't good enough. Maupay isn't going to do what Frank Lampard wants him to do when coming on in that situation. The midfield, as I said, for me, a lot of that blame goes on Frank yesterday. A lot of it goes on Frank for multiple reasons. As I've just mentioned, Onana starting with a sprained ankle is fucking suicidal. Why he's starting if he sprained his ankle the day before is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And that's coming from Paddy Boylan at The Athletic, who's labelled he had a sprained ankle. That's not just me making something up because he went off. That's coming from good, you know, sources in the media to state that he'd sprained his ankle the day before. So why he's starting is beyond me. Seamus Coleman should have never have started. It should have been Nathan Patterson all day. That's on Lampard. And then the decision to bring Maupay on and not change the game plan is on Lampard as well. Players-wise, yeah, Garner was poor. Garner gay. Yeah, Pickford's kicking was fucking abysmal. Yeah, the 2 centre-halves, again, I don't really think you can put too much blame on them. Iwobi wasn't as involved as he should do, and Iwobi had an opportunity within the opening 5 minutes to change the game. You know, Everton had the best chance of that opening sort of spell when Calvert-Lewin plays Iwobi in brilliantly, and Iwobi's got a one-on-one and just tries to put it too wide into the corner and ends up putting it wide. And you know, if that goes in, who knows? It might be a completely different game. We had another couple of half chances, etc., but nothing really worth screaming about. That one was the one that had he have scored, it would have been a different game. But it's a little bit worrying at the moment, I must admit. Now, look, I suppose the positive way to look at things and the way to look at things is that we've got one Premier League game to go before the World Cup, and then we don't come back until Boxing Day, which is a week before the January transfer window opens. So the way to look at things is we're not too far away from being able to change this team around, and what we need desperately is a forward. David says, do we get the play ratings data? Yes, mate, they'll be up straight after this. What we need desperately is an attacker who can create chances. We've just witnessed 3 players go off injured. Garner, Onana and Calvert-Lewin have all gone off with injuries yesterday, as the manager has confirmed. Whether or not they'll be available for Bournemouth, I don't know. I suppose the again, a positive is that it's the last game before the World Cup and they'll all have time to recover. I know Onana will likely go to the World Cup and Garner as well, but we know Calvert-Lewin won't be going. So yeah, a forward in January is essential. A winger who is capable of doing more than just taking the ball to the byline, trying to do step overs and falling over. A winger who is capable of not only creating chances but winning a game. We haven't got that. We haven't got a game winner in this team. We've got certain players that when they play well and when they do well can win games and can create chances and can score goals, but we haven't got one player in this team that you look at when things aren't going well or when things aren't going your way. There's not one player that you look at and you think he's the difference, he's going to be the difference, he's going to be the game winner. We used to have 2 or 3 of them in the team. Players that, even if things weren't going your way, you always knew if they were on the pitch that you could win the game because they could produce this moment of magic that could win the game. Leicester have got a couple, Leicester have got one in yesterday. I know they won 2-0 and Harvey Barnes scored on the counter attack towards the end of the game, but that Youri Tielemans goal is that's come from a game winning player. We haven't got any of them. We haven't got any of them whatsoever. And by the way, I'm not sitting here saying Neil Maupay, where he says Maupay isn't even as good as Dom. I'm not sitting here saying Neil Maupay is an unbelievable striker. What I'm saying is we're misusing him. So even though he's not great, even being not great, we're misusing him. So use him to his strengths, and then we can sit here and say, oh, he's not good enough. But I can't personally sit here and go, Neil Maupay's shite, when our tactic when he's on the pitch is to lump the ball up to him and to expect him to grow 3 foot and win every header. He's not going to do it. So play to his strengths, and then we can determine whether or not he's good enough. Whether he is or not is I'm sure some people would say he's definitely not. I can't sit here and watch yesterday and go, Maupay's absolutely shite, he's done nothing. He didn't do anything. But that's because every time he had we had the ball anywhere near him, it was lumped up to him. But he's never going to win it. Yeah. Really, really poor yesterday. Really poor from, as I said, most of them. The manager got it woefully wrong. The players were really poor. And yeah, I suppose all we can do now is try and get something out of next week. Try and get something in the cup midweek. And then look forward to a few weeks without Everton where we can address what the real issues are at the football club. And the real issues is the complete lack of any real cutting edge or quality going forward. Yeah, a winger, a striker, desperately needed. One big positive I would say yesterday is I thought Nathan Patterson was... I thought Vitaly Mykolenko was excellent yesterday. I thought it was, again, one of his best games in an Everton shirt. I thought he was the only one that you looked at and you thought he is really having a top game here. Everybody else was below par or awful. But I thought Vitaly Mykolenko was very, very, very good yesterday. But look, we've lost another game. A game that we shouldn't have lost and a game that I don't think any of us really expected us to lose. But for me, Frank got it woefully wrong yesterday, from the Coleman decision to leaving Damari Gray on to not changing the plan when Dom come off. As I said, if you want to stay with plan A, then don't sign Neil Maupay. Go out and sign a 6'3" striker who is a like for like for Dom. Maupay isn't like for Dom, which automatically means when you replace Dom with Neil Maupay, you need to change the system. And he didn't change the system yesterday. But look, we put it behind us. I'm going to do the player ratings and then I've got a banging headache, so I'm not even going to think about Everton for the rest of the day. Yeah, if you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Massive thanks to everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. As I said, if you have enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new. We'll be back with the player ratings in just a moment, so look out for those. But big thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.